Hello everybody, and welcome to Manga Mavericks at Movies, the show where we talk smack about movies, or more often than not, we praise movies that we saw.
Especially this one, because this one was amazing.
Yes, everyone has hyped it up as not only one of the best sci-fi films from the last few years, but one of the best films to come out of 2017. A film that blew everyone away. No one expected this to be as good as it was, or nor as excellent as it is. Blade Runner 2049, a sequel to a movie 30 years old. No one had any expectations that this would be good, that this would live up to the legacy of the original. But to the surprise of everyone, it not only lives up to that legacy, I dare say, and most people have said, it surpasses it.
Surpasses it?
Many people consider Blade Runner 2049 to be superior to the original Blade Runner.
Huh. I mean, I can definitely see that. Like, I think a lot of considerers Ridley Scott's not involved with this.
Well, he was involved on some level.
He's not, directing it.
He was not the director. The director was Denis Villeneuve. And just by the director alone, we should have expected to be excellent. We should have trusted this to be a good film, because he was the director of Arrival, last year's stunning sci-fi alien story that blew us away with how thoughtful it was.
I did not watch Arrival.
And that is why you are uncultured as a moviegoer.
You watched Arrival?
I did watch Arrival.
Oh, okay. When did Arrival come out?
2016.
Like what month?
2016, November.
Okay. How did I not see Arrival then?
I don't know. That's on you.
It's my fault. I'll go to the film pleb jail with the rest of the Academy Award judges.
Well, you and I were both in film pleb jail because until very recently, we hadn't even seen the original Blade Runner. Now granted, that is a movie 35 years old.
Yeah.
But for such a monumental sci-fi masterpiece, it is criminal that we did not see it for 20 years of our life.
Yeah, that's for sure. So basically, we bought it off Amazon Video, the final cut, because that's the best version. And yeah, we watched it and it was amazing.
Yes. While watching it, we were struck by how influential this film was, to the point that we could recognize its iconography just from watching all of the derivative works we had seen of it, including the likes of several anime, most notably Ghost in the Shell. It is astonishing, watching Blade Runner, how much the world of Ghost in the Shell, Mamoroshi's 1995 film, borrows from it.
Yeah, all the city shots that you remember from the original Ghost in the Shell film are so reminiscent of Blade Runner. Just down to a T. Even, the giant hologram promotions and all that stuff. It's just, you can really see that Oshii loved that film. And even beyond that, there's stuff just Rachel's character, which Dorothy from Big O is basically Rachel from Blade Runner.
Yes, we made that comment. We were wow, this is our Dorothy Wainwright. This is the inspiration for that character.
Yeah, beyond that, just the special effects in that film, and just visually, that film looks ahead of its time.
Every future in a sci-fi movie looks like Blade Runner's future. That's how influential it is. Yeah. Every future now looks like that super ethno-Japanesey feeling city. It's all blue, grayish tints.
I still find that part a bit weird, that it's just it's a bunch of white people, but there's all these, Japanese,
The thing that was weirdest to me about the original Blade Runner is that, ostensibly, everyone in that city, most of the citizens look Japanese, or at the very least, of Asian descent, but all the main characters were white. And I was like, this is very suspect, and I'm not pleased with this.
Yeah.
In this movie, the city is more diverse. Honestly, there wasn't that much diversity. It was still mostly white actors, but at the very least,
there wasn't a bunch of Asians and then one white guy right there who's supposed to just be a normal guy in the city. What's weird though, if you notice in one of the scenes, our main character Kay is using a machine, and the machine speaks to him in Japanese.
Yes.
And the text is all Japanese, and I'm just okay.
I guess for many sci-fi writers and visionaries, the future is heavily inspired by Japan.
The Japanese are going to take us all over. We're going to become slaves to the animus and the holographic waifus.
I mean, holographic waifus were invented in the future of Blade Runner 2049.
And our
the main character's gay's girlfriend is a holographic AI named Joy.
It just goes to show you.
She's a mass-produced model, and she has her own autonomy. She has her own free will, as the movie explores. But she is ostensibly a manufactured artificial intelligence.
But this is the main message of the film, though, kids. 2D women are better than 3D women.
That's not really the message of the film. Certainly, though, the film argues that an artificial life is as valuable as a quote-unquote natural life.
Yeah, it definitely drives that message home, and even with, like, I'm surprised they handle, like, the whole, like, holographic AI relationship with, like, I forget the hologram's name.
Like, her name is Joy.
Yeah, Joy and Kay's relationship is actually handled really well, which kind of surprised me. And even beyond that, like you said, the big message is that, life, regardless of artificial or, like, organic, is important.
Yes. In that respect, the theme of this movie is not really that much of a expansion of what the original was saying. Thematically, their message is pretty similar. That life is life, even if it is man-made artificial. What is the difference between a robot or a replicant than a human baby? Not much, because they were both created by man.
Yeah.
They both have the capacity for free will and deserve to be treated with the same amount of humanity as natural-born beings. And I say natural-born in quotation.
I guess one thing that really comes to me when I think about this is that the original film, I feel, is very much about what does it mean to be human? What is really a human? While this film, I feel, it does take that message, but at the same time, it channels it into a more character-driven narrative through Kay himself.
I think this movie is a much stronger exploration of that theme you're just saying. In fact, I don't think the original movie went that far with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The villain of the original movie was an artificial intelligence, a replicant, and his final words about his memories and musing on the ephemerality of his life. You know, that struck a chord. Yeah. That was very human, memorable. And of course, Rachel's character arc in the original film also characterized her as a life as valuable as any other humans. You know?
I guess I should rephrase this. What I'm saying is that in the original film, I feel like it's trying to, like, have the overarching theme of what does it mean to be human, while in Blade Runner 2049, it's taking that theme and then channeling it through Kay and then having this character focused interpretation of that. Like, I definitely agree with you that the theme is stronger in this film, in the sequel. But that's because they're channeling it through Kay. They're focusing a lot more on Kay himself as a character.
I definitely think Kay is a much stronger character. It's definitely easier to empathize with him than Deckard, who was a loner, and honestly, his entire characterization was very much that machismo action hero character archetype from the 80s.
Even then with Deckard, though, like, Deckard, like, they did develop him in the original film, but it's more through a lot of more sparse kind of scenes, like his dreams and just various hallucinations he sees. And here, though, with Kay in this film, it's a lot more, I guess, heavy. You really see Kay react to the situations in, and like how he's like changing throughout the film, like all his reactions to his false memories and just false like beliefs all crashing down. Like you can really empathize with him as a character, which I feel with Decker, I never really felt sorry for Decker, really felt emotionally attached to Decker in the original film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kay is more emotionally vulnerable, so when he has huge revelations shake him to his core, who puts up a brave face and like, I'm not being affected by this front for most of the movie until the moment where he goes to visit the memory engineer, Anna, and she tells him the memories you have are real, and he loses it, he says, God damn it. You know, that is so effective because of his characterization and because we have gotten into his mind and we have something human to attach to him. But with Deckard in the original film, what weakens his character is that he is characterized so much like this 80s action hero archetype, and that appeals to a certain fantasy of masculinity and a heroic ideal, I suppose, but in terms of like an actually relatable character, I think that Kay is far more easy to empathize with than Deckard.
Like, Deckard never really had a moment in the original film where you really feel sorry for him. You feel sorry for Rachel a little bit.
I mean, you never have to feel sorry for Deckard.
He's never in a position where he's vulnerable or he's like in a position where he has a lot to lose.
Yeah, Kay has his entire life and his loved ones to lose. And Deckard in the original film, he didn't really have a whole lot to lose but his own life. It was way easier to empathize and become attached to the replicants he's hunting than him himself.
Yeah.
I think one thing that also weakened the efficacy of Deckard's character arc is actually the whole toying with the idea that, is Deckard a replicant or is he human? Now that is a huge part of the original film's appeal, that mystery.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also takes time away from actually emotionally engaging with Deckard. Like the emotional aspect of his arc is him questioning whether or not he is human, but why do we care about his understanding?
Which is something that this film, the sequel, does a lot better. Like, I feel like right away they kind of establish who Kay is as a character, and when you start going through all these like reveals of yes, he's a replicant, and yes, his memories may be fake, you start reacting to that a lot more. I guess emotionally than with Decker, where Decker we don't know that much really about him. We don't really have any reason to be emotionally attached to him in the first place.
The scene that solidifies this is right at the beginning of the film, and that's where the movie starts out strong. When Kay goes home and we see his interactions with Joy and see how he longs for human connection, for a family, for love, when we see that moment, we immediately connect with his aspiration. He wants to be human. And this revelation that maybe he has been human all along, that hits so much harder than with Deckard, who, when we're introduced to him, he is aloof. He does not care about anyone. Like, only in the middle of the movie does he start to question his memories, but it feels very disconnected from, like, his situation, because his character arc is not about really finding love, even though he does fall in love with Rachel and stuff. It's just not as emotionally powerful. It's not as easy to sympathize with Deckard, just in terms of his personality. And it's really easy to sympathize with Kay also because we are shown that he is being a victim of prejudice. Because, like, when he walks right into the station, someone calls him a skinhead, a skinner. A derogatory term for replicant. He is treated as subhuman, subject to psychology tests to make sure he is operational. And if he fails those tests, like, they'll kill him. He is a victim of a prejudice system, so that makes them a lot more easy to, like... I mean, it makes him very easy to empathize with, or, like, want to see succeed, because Deckard, on the other hand, he's, treated like a human. He really doesn't have much at stake, right?
Mm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I'd say, yeah, like we've kind of said, like, yeah, Deckard just didn't have much to lose. Well, Kay, like, you can see the prejudice, you can see all the things that he's struggling with, and that's why you're able to empathize with him. But I guess we should go beyond just comparing Deckard and Kay here.
Again, the core theme of the story is the same.
Yeah.
It just takes a different approach to exploring how do we define what humanity is? Can a robot or replicant, artificial human, have the same value as a quote-unquote natural-born human? Do they have souls? Do they have humanity? Are they really the same as us? And the movie clearly makes a statement for yes, these are humans. Even if they have been created a different way, they feel emotion. They love. And it is love as powerful as any human emotion. Like, none of the, quote, so-called humans in this film are all that human.
Yeah, I mean, what's the name of the boss guys again? Like Williams or whatever?
Yes, the Wallace Corporation.
Yeah, Wallace.
Wallace is the most inhuman character. Not only because he has these implants in him, like he's he might be like flesh and blood, but he has like
eye implants.
Eye implants. He looks
doesn't
alien,
look human.
And his behavior, his philosophy is so alien too. There is no empathy or humanity in his soul.
Like, when you're first introduced to him, he just brutally kills one of his own, like,
He treats the replicants as disposable instruments. He can always create more. If they are useless to him, he will get rid of them. It is this instrumentality of human life that is so horrifying and also sets him up as the most inhuman character of them all.
Mm.
Because his whole motivation is that he wants to have replicants that can breed so that he can create more of them. Literally, he wants to make a slave workforce that will self-propagate.
Basically, just have them reproduce faster than he can produce them so that he can have, like, an infinite supply.
Yes, and when he looks at his new experiment to see whether she has a womb or not, and decides that, oh, well, she's barren.
It's time to go stabbing.
Kills her. Later on, when he has a clone of Rachel meet with Deckard, and Deckard says, the eyes are the wrong color. Rachel's eyes were green. He's like, well, this is useless to me now.
Killer.
Those were alive. Like that experiment that we see being born. She was afraid. She was just born into this world and she has no idea what's going on. It's heartbreaking. You're watching basically this newborn life trying to make sense of what they are, who they are, and being treated as an object.
Yeah, they're basically being treated as just various goods, or like, I'd say worse than livestock. They're being treated less than livestock.
They're being treated as objects.
Yeah.
They're being treated as instruments. A disposable labor force. They aren't treated as human beings. At all. it is incredibly disturbing. And even characters who supposedly are less racist against the replicants, like Kei's superior officer, Lieutenant Joshi, even a character like that displays very subtle but clear prejudice against replicants.
I'd say that
Her line that Kei has been getting on just fine without a soul insinuates that she doesn't believe Kei had a soul.
Yeah. I'd say that she's not any different from the other humans. 'Cause
Yeah.
they never show any signs of that. Like, you know, oh, yeah, she's not telling, like, she's not telling the corporation where Kei goes off to, but she doesn't know, and she has no, like, way of knowing that he's the naturally born replicant. So, she's basically just as racist as everyone else. This film never presents anything to tell us otherwise.
Yeah. None of the humans in this movie are presented very sympathetically. Only the artificial intelligence.
I guess Decker, but like
they don't know.
They still keep it vague.
They still keep it vague
because like one thing that they do explain at the beginning of this film is that you remember in the first film the replicants could only live for a certain period of time.
3 years.
3 years. But they reveal in this film that a certain subsection of replicants have been able to survive past that point and essentially have lifespans equivalent to human beings.
Yes.
So they like when like Decker gets captured in this film, they kinda still keep it vague whether he's human or not, because like the leader of the Wallace, yeah, I keep forgetting his name. Wallace is talking about, maybe you were programmed for you and Rachel to become the father and mother of a new breed of replicants. Or maybe not. So he's basically just cock teasing it. But it's kind of a good thing they do keep it ambiguous, because that kind of was a big thing in the original film. And if you just say straight out, okay, Decker's human, Decker's a replicant, it kind of just breaks the overall feel.
It would rob the mystique of the original film if the question was answered.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing about Decker, I guess, is that I'm glad that they don't overuse him in this film.
Yep, they keep him to the end.
Yeah. Which is nice, because in the trailers, like, one thing that I found weird is that they always promoted the film with Decker. Like, Decker was, like, in a bunch of scenes in the trailers, and it kind of makes it seem like, he's gonna be in, like, most of this film. He's also on the poster, too. So it's like, they make it seem like he's gonna have a bigger role than he actually does, but I think that was just a way to promote it, because it's Decker and Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford brings in money. So yeah, I'm glad that in the actual film itself, they kept Decker in a smaller role, but an important role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense why they would promote the film.
Yeah, it's Harrison Ford. It brings the money.
But it's also a good idea to just focus on that scene. And because it kept so much more of the film a mystery of what it was about.
Yeah. Really. Like, I don't think many people will be able to figure out what this film is actually about solely based on the trailers.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing I knew about this film beforehand is that they were seeking out, like, Decker's, like, child. I didn't know much beyond that.
I didn't even know that much.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I got that from the trailers or if I got that from the Wikipedia page. But yeah, they did a really good job of not spoiling anything in the trailers like a lot of action films tend to do.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad I was not spoiled on this movie, because it goes in a direction that I did not expect by the middle. I thought that Kei would end up being the child of Deckard and Rachel. But I'm very glad it did not turn out to be the case. I'm very glad that it is revealed that yes, he was a replicant. The child is someone else. But that doesn't mean that he isn't human. His actions prove that he is human. At the end of the film, Deckard asks Kay, why did you do this for me? Why did you save my life? Why are you reuniting me with my daughter? What am I to you? And Kay doesn't give him a reply, but the implied reason is just because he has empathy, because he just wanted that happiness for them, because he's a good person, and that's just how he decided to live like the last days of his life, really. Yeah, that's the change he wanted to make in the world.
Like, the other replicants wanted him to kill Deckard, because they don't care about Deckard. Fuck Deckard.
But he's not a machine that is just going to obey orders blindly. He has his own critical thinking capacity.
One other scene kind of related to this in the film was when Wallace's assistant goes up to Deckard's boss and starts talking about, oh, you think all these replicants are just good, truthful people. And she starts, like, cutting up, like, Deckard's boss, and he's like, I'll just tell Mr. Wallace that you attacked me and I was doing some self-defense.
Yeah. That scene pretty much established that, they have free will. They'll do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Love is an interesting antagonist. I am so glad it turned out she was not the child. I'm very glad. I was worried that, she's actually the child of Deckard and Rachel, because, I mean, she did kind of look like Rachel, but
she did remind me of Rachel. I'm just like, okay, so is there just like a different like strand of assistant like
but it would have been too convoluted if somehow she was being raised by the Wallace Corporation and the plan was to keep her hidden in plain sight. That would have been very convoluted. I'm glad they didn't go that route.
That would be a bit of a weird thing.
And the actual reason is much smarter and more satisfying emotionally. Because a more personal reason why I didn't want Love to be that child was because she's just such a hateable villain. Because, she's a replicant. Yeah, she is ostensibly as much a victim, but she's so complicit in the system. She obeys Wallace's orders and is so willing to kill in order to satisfy the boss's orders. She is intrigued by the idea of self-propagating replicants, but at the same time, she does not seem concerned about the fact that they are still being treated as objects and slaves.
Yeah,
the fact that privileged position, and she is just making advantage of that.
The only time where I kind of felt some sympathy for her was in the first scene where Wallace shows up, where Wallace is stabbing that new replicant.
She was definitely disturbed and crying then.
Yeah.
But the fact that she does not choose to disobey Wallace, and in fact doubles down and gleefully kills in order to achieve her ends, definitely characterizes her as more of a villainous character. As bad as Wallace himself, because she is complicit in a system that is oppressing her own kind.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I was very satisfied that she died.
Yeah.
I was sad that Wallace did not die, because Tyrell in the original film died, but
I mean, Tyrell, though...
It opens up the world to more possibilities if a villain like him is still alive.
Like, Tyrell's death in, the original film didn't give me much satisfaction, because, they never really built up how terrible of a person Tyrell was.
I think that it was pretty clear, nonetheless.
He was, but I don't know. He just wasn't there enough. Where in this film, if Wallace had died, I would have enjoyed that wholeheartedly. If you think back to the original film, though, Sid, Tyrell barely shows up. He's just at the end being a dick to that one replicant. And, yeah, sure, he's a dick, but it's I don't really see much enjoyment in killing him.
I guess that's fair. The fact that, to me, he was so patronizing to Roy Batty and the other replicants and saying, you know what? good for you for trying so hard to not die in 3 years and trying to prove that you're more than what you've been made to be.
Oh, I'm not denying that he's an asshole, and yeah, he deserved to die. But at the same time, I didn't really get much reaction out of it. It's just like, okay, yeah, he deserved to die. Cool. Mm-hmm. Where here, like, if Wallace had died, I'd be like, yeah, fuck Wallace. Wallace sucks.
Yes. The team, ostensibly, is the same as the original, but I think the execution narratively is much stronger because we are more able to emotionally invest in the characters. The fact that the villains are so much more hateable, I think, is also a good testament to that.
Yeah, I'd say, on a character standpoint, this film exceeds the original with flying colors.
Yeah, I think the film is stronger narratively and in terms of characters. Visually, in terms of cinematography, the original film leaves much more of an impact on me in terms of its lighting, in terms of how it constructed its scenes, and also in terms of how the scenes themselves stay in my mind. I have only seen Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 once each, but there are more scenes in the original that stick really well in my mind just because of how it pushes your buttons. Like the interrogation scene at the beginning of Blade Runner, and then later when Deckard is interrogating Rachel, they are so uncomfortable. They are so tense that they really get under your skin. And also, there's also so much more sense of danger in the climax of that original film. Like, in the battle between Kay and Love in this film,
there's never really a point in that fight where you think that, okay, Kay is gonna die or anything. No, you know he's gonna kill Love.
Not necessarily even that. It just did not, really grab you or keep me on the edge of my seat in the same way the fight between Deckard and Roy Batty in the original did.
Yeah, I mean that fight in the original is just rough. Especially, it just it takes us on so many different, sceneries, for one thing. And it just, there's never a point where it feels one-sided.
Right.
Where in this, it's kind of, in the Kay versus Love fight, it kind of just, shifts over to one side, shifts back to Kay's side, shifts back to Love's side, and just feels like a back and forth of one dominating the other.
The action choreography and then the sense of pain you feel from the characters was just so much stronger than the final fight in the original.
That too,
Here, I didn't really feel the pain of the characters. Even when Love was drowning, I wasn't, as uncomfortable, or I wasn't, wriggling in my seat, when Deckard was being hunted down by Roy in the original.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So in terms of, the cinematography and, the filmmaking, I think the original is stronger. In terms of pure narrative, I think the sequel is stronger.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say that, the visuals and the cinematography and this in the
they're good,
great.
But they're just not as striking to me as they were in the original. I think that has to do with the fact that the original had much starker colors.
Yeah,
harsher shadows.
It did.
This one was a little more muddy, a lot more misty.
There was a lot of mix.
Yeah. I mean, there were monochromatic color schemes and shading used in this, in the original, but they didn't, stick out as powerfully as, when you go into the Tyrell Corporation's office in the original and how that looks. That's just so stunning.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel the cinematography in this film was, that stunning. I mean, it was really good, but it wasn't as artful.
Yeah, I guess one thing that the sequel also is able to capture well from the original, in my opinion, is the, conveying more through the silent scenes than actual talking and actual dialogue. Because for a lot of this film, it is quiet. There's not just people constantly talking and stuff, but it's still conveyed, in a really strong manner. And I'd say, for a film that's 2 hours and 45 minutes, not a single scene feels superfluous. Every scene has a purpose, just like in the original film. Every scene means something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be a nearly 3-hour film, but never once did I feel bored by it.
Yeah. Which is a good thing. Because you always have this with, like, these 2.5+ hour films where you feel like these can just be cut down. That was the thing with Kingsman: The Golden Circle. That's the thing with, I think, a lot of the Hobbit films. It's just like... Here, though, it's done so well. You can see why this had to be 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people had been hyping this film up to me, and just on the internet, as like an incredibly engaging and thought-provoking piece of science fiction that surpasses the original. I think they are half right. I don't think that the theme is all that complex. I think it's actually pretty blatant of what it's trying to say about artificial intelligence.
The theme is something
what it
that...
means to be human and all that.
The theme is something that's been in sci-fi entertainment for ages at this point.
Yeah.
Like...
So it didn't really leave me thinking about humanity and existentialism and all that stuff as much as the original film did. The original film, I think, did that stronger.
Yeah.
But I think with this film, it is such a great piece of science fiction because it does have so much thought put into it. You can't really predict what it's trying to say or where it is going with its message if you don't already know. So I think that's what's really great about it. I think it's a great marriage of things that make a blockbuster engaging and what makes a genuinely great piece of science fiction entertaining.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say in terms of just like Hollywood sci-fi, this is easily.
There's more thought put into it. Even if the message isn't necessarily that complex. I mean, there are probably layers you could dig deeper, but I feel like what it's saying about, artificial intelligence, whether the replicants are human or not, I feel like it makes a very loud statement that, these are human beings who have lives worth living and deserve to be treated the same.
I'd say compared with how simplistic Hollywood is with its themes usually, this is done a lot better in terms of execution. Yeah.
I mean, I guess one thing that could have improved its message is showing sympathetic human characters, like real human characters who were also good to counterbalance the ones that were bad, because like most of the supposedly real human beings in this film are like bad people.
Like this is a problem I have with the original Blade Runner too, because it never shows you a sign that there are good human beings.
That's fair.
Unless we consider Deckard.
But even then, Deckard's not that good a person.
Deckard's not that great of a person. And even with one person, though, you can't just represent that, okay, so a society still has good human beings. Which, I guess is something this film, I think, should have done. To give it a more stronger message. But any other thoughts?
I don't have many other thoughts on this film. I think it's actually very straightforward thematically, so there isn't too much for me to dig into, and in that respect, it's a little disappointing. As a film in of itself, though, it was incredibly engrossing and engaging. Yeah. Definitely one of the best films of the year in terms of the overall cohesiveness of it, and just... It is an astounding film.
Yeah, this is easily my favorite film of this year by a landslide. I loved it. Yeah, and I guess like you, there's just not a lot left to talk about simply because it's such a character-driven film that it's much about the plot. The plot is so strong, and like the themes are there. The themes are there just like in the original, but the original was very much more focused on the themes themselves, while this one's intertwining those themes with the narrative.
Yeah, one weakness of the original is that it stops to dwell on the themes and philosophize too much. But this film focuses on the narrative, and it doesn't like stop in its tracks to just muse on philosophy. It just keeps focused on a character-driven story, and then the themes come out through the story itself.
Which works a lot better, especially in modern
it makes
day.
it a much stronger film.
Like, I think if you made a film like the original Blade Runner today, a lot of your average film goers would get bored.
I mean, they got bored back then. The original Blade Runner was a flop.
Yeah, true.
And unfortunately, Blade Runner 2049, while it's astounding critical success, only a modest, if actually an underperforming box office.
It made its money back at the very least.
Yeah.
I think the big issue that this one faces is the fact that it is so long that, for one, theaters don't want to show it for too long because it takes up so much time, and it's just like I don't think people are going to want to go see a 2-hour, 45-minute film if they aren't already attached to the original film.
Not necessarily. I mean, look at our theater audience. We saw this movie in mid-November. This movie came out in mid-September, and still, that theater was pretty full.
Yeah, but
it wasn't a small theater.
I'd argue that a part of that is also in our area, Sid. A lot of the theaters have already stopped showing it. So the people who do want to see it are congregating in the same areas.
But it still expresses an interest in seeing it.
I definitely agree there. And there are, of course, people who are going to it because of such high critical reception. But I guess what I'm trying to say, though, is that it's not reaching a bigger profit because your average casual filmgoer who would go into a theater without very little context on the quality of the films being shown probably would not want to go see a film that's that long.
I don't know. I mean, lots of people went to go see those Hobbit movies.
Yeah, but Lord of the Rings is such a more culturally talked about thing compared to Blade Runner. Blade Runner, people talk about Blade Runner, but it's mainly people who love and have like a passion for cinema. Your average person will not really talk about Blade Runner.
I suppose. I mean, it's just a shame that this was not a mega hit. I mean, in a sense, it is a blessing because that means that the studios won't try to whore it out as a franchise or anything. Yeah. This can stand alone as just a quality film that will be remembered as a classic in the decades to come.
We're not going to get like 50 more films like we're going to get with Star Wars now.
Yeah, so in that respect, I think that this is a good thing that it's only as financially successful as it is. Because, God forbid, I don't want such a thought-provoking film series to be whored out into cheap, commercialized, mass-produced nothingness that is Star Wars.
Yeah. That wouldn't be good. I mean, like, I wouldn't be opposed to a Blade Runner 3. Because there is still stuff you can do with this.
I mean, there's potential for a third movie, but at the same time, it's basically where this is going. It kind of feels like, oh, the replicants are gonna take over and make it into the Matrix? Is that where this is going? I feel like we've seen that story before.
Yeah, like it's... like I know there's a minority of people who watch Blade Runner who want like this conclusive ending. We don't need a conclusive ending to Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need. Especially in this one where it's not about... The replicant rebellion is not the main point of the plot. The main point is Kay's journey.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, it wouldn't make sense for another film. Because
it's this one replicant who desperately wants to be a quote-unquote real boy, and then by the end of the film he realized he has been a real boy all along. Not that he was ever a human in terms of he was born of humans naturally, but he is human.
Yeah.
And everything that means, just in who he is.
Exactly. So, I don't think we necessarily need a third film, but if we get it, sure. Maybe we'll get one in like 30 years.
Maybe.
I think you mentioned this before off mic, that this film will probably become like the original film as a cult classic. It will be bought and resold for decades. And I think it's going to be remembered. It's going to be remembered as a masterpiece, because that's what it is.
Yes. But I think that's basically all we have to say about Blade Runner 2049. There is just not much more to say other than it is as incredible as people are saying it is. Maybe not as thoughtful as I feel people are making it out to be, but as a film, just one of the best pieces of cinema that has come out in quite some time.
Yeah, go see it if it's still in theaters near you. Or I think the home media release will be out soon. So,
sure.
Yeah, there's going to be ways to buy it, so support it. It's worth your time.
Mm-hmm. And also worth your time will probably be the next movie we're talking about.
Whatever it is. Ooh.
It doesn't even have anything to do with ghosts.
I know.